Okay, now I'd just like to request that you take a moment and think. Just think, what do you think about when you first hear the word wrestling? Probably this: a bunch of guys throwing each other, smashing each other's faces onto the mat, and just grabbing each other, while their parents are in the bleachers hoping, oh my God, I hope he doesn't break anything today. Now, I'm sure I can change your outlook on this sport in a couple of minutes. I'd like to start that off by quoting Dan Gable, a famous wrestler. He said, "Once you've wrestled, everything in life is easier." But I bet you're wondering, how can a mere sport change so much in a person's life? Well, oh look, I'm here, and it seems like I've wrestled before, so here I am to give you a crash course on how this sport changes a female's mindset and psychological thinking. Now, before I get too ahead of myself, let me give you a quick history lesson on the changing roles of men and women. As we all know, gender relations and roles have changed throughout the past century in many ways. Traditionally, men were the ones who did the energy-intensive work. They were the ones who served as the one and only sole breadwinner for their families. These men, they were the ones who had the powerful jobs in society, like a doctor or a lawyer or a politician. On the other hand, women are expected to stay home and bear, nurture, and take care of children. But how fair is this? As you can see in this picture, women get a pat on the head for doing something so simple that anyone can do. They are looked down on and inferior. Now let's take this as an example. Whenever a guy wins a wrestling match and goes to talk about it to his friend, he's like, "Oh dude, guess what? I just won my first match." And then the friend goes, "Dude, that's so dope." Okay, but then the same thing, a female does this, and all of a sudden it's like pigs can fly because it's so out of the ordinary. But how fair is this, that women are looked as inferior and that they're incapable of doing something that a man can do? Now, even though society is not as bad as it was in the day of patriarchy, women still struggle each and every day. And these things look like making less than men in wages, or even having a harder time advancing to a higher position in a company or business. Now, let's take a quick look at inspirations and innovations in history. There's Einstein, who is his own cool category, and then there's men, oh, and more men. But where are the women? Imagine all the development, the innovation, all the contributions that could be brought to the table if they weren't always constantly crushed down by society. Society thinks wrestling is an only male sport. I have encountered many people that have said, "What are you doing here? You don't deserve to be here. Wrestling, oh, that's a male sport. You're not strong enough to do that. Oh, you're lifting? Why are you lifting? Go home, read a book, paint a picture, go to a fashion class. You don't deserve to wrestle." Now, this all comes down, if women are educated to better understand their opportunities in society, more people will be able to do their passions, their visions, their dreams. This will lead to more people going for women empowerment. Women all over the world, millions of women, will be more urged to fight for their freedoms and their hobbies. Now, don't get me wrong, wrestling is a really hard sport. It takes all types of athletic ability, from agility and speed to strength. Now, without this extra hormone, it might be harder for a woman to wrestle at the same level as a man. But wrestling builds a kind of character into you, the perseverance, the integrity that just keeps you boosting forward into your passions and dreams. It tells you that I don't need this one hormone to tell me what I'm going to do. I have my own passions. I can speak for myself. Now, this is partially from society's pressure that women aren't exactly going for their passions, but also from the lack of strength in the mind, which leads me on to my next point, positive self-talk. But before we go on to that, we're missing something that's so important, that's right in front of you, that's also an obstacle. Like, look at that, your opponent. And sometimes your opponent can scare you and lower your confidence level. And this can lead to poor and defective wrestling and an ultimate loss. Now, Positive self-talk is very important because it pushes you in the direction that you're supposed to be going. It prepares your body for what you have to do next in a match. Now, for the strength of the mind, girls take less risks than men. In a wrestling match, men are always going for that extra takedown. They're going for that cradle, that high C. Oh, look, there's a new move. I'm going to use it. But women, they're more reserved. They're like hand fighting and hand fighting. Oh, I'm trying to catch my breath. Okay, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready to take that move. But then the match has ended and they've lost. Partially because of society, but also because of the lack of strength in their mind. Positive self-talk. My coach always used to say, the mind quits before the body. Now, what does this mean? That the mind really does quit before the body does. You're wrestling, and you say, oh, I was tired, coach. I couldn't hit that move. But no, you weren't tired. It was due to the lack of strength in your mind. Now, there are 5 key characteristics to a good wrestler, and these include courage, vision, passion, resilience, and confidence. But how do you pursue these characteristics? That's where positive self-talk comes into play. Positive self-talk, I keep saying this, but what exactly is this? Positive self-talk is not self-deception. It is not looking at a situation and seeing only what you want to see. Instead, positive self-talk is understanding the truth in a situation. And a fundamental truth is that you will fail. But what are you going to do after you do fail? That's where positive self-talk comes into place. It pushes you and boosts you forward. Are you going to keep your face on the mat and just stay there, or are you going to get up and keep wrestling? Now, getting rid of all of this internal negative chatter is the first thing you need to do before successfully wrestling. Now, wrestling is a very old sport. It's all the way back and mentioned in the Bible. And it's an episode from the Genesis of Jacob wrestling the angel. And it's a tough sport. It takes a lot of effort. And you might get teased for it, or they might say you're incapable of it. But the thing is, if you persevere, everyone can do it. That's why I encourage girls everywhere to wrestle. Let's all wrestle like a girl. Thank you.